Good day, everyone. You are welcome to economics lesson. Today, we are going to continue from where we stopped last time. If you recall very well, last time we stopped at labor market. And particularly, we discussed labor force and efficiency of labor. Today, we are going to take the second part of labor market, and we are going to discuss mobility of labor. If you recall very well, I taught you in class labor, and I taught you that one of the features of labor is that labor is mobile. It means labor can move from one place to the other. So today, we're going to discuss the movement of labor, which is mobility of labor. Mobility of labor. Now let's look at the definition of mobility of labor. Mobility of labor is the ease with which labor can move from one geographical area or from one occupation to another. If it is easy for labor to move from one geographical area or one occupation to another, we say labor is mobile. Now let's look at the types of mobility of labor. We have the first one, which is geographical mobility of labor. The second one is occupational mobility of labor. Let's look at the first one, which is geographical mobility of labor. Geographical mobility of labor is the ease with which labor can move from one geographical area to another. If it is very easy for someone to move from a geographical area, say Jos, to another geographical area, say Lagos, it means labor is mobile. Let's look at the factors affecting geographical mobility of labor. So we're going to look at the factors that can make it easy for labor to move or makes it difficult for labor to move. The first one is cost of transportation. When the cost of transportation is high, or if the transport cost is high, labor finds it difficult to move to other geographical areas. But when the cost of transportation is low, labor can easily move to other geographical areas. The next one is accommodation problems. Some areas have accommodation problems, shortage of accommodation. Labor finds it difficult to move to such areas because of this problem. For example, areas like Lagos that has accommodation problems, labor finds it difficult to move to such area because you will find it difficult to have a home to live. The third one is climatic conditions. Labor move to areas with favorable climatic conditions, and places that do not have favorable climatic conditions, labor finds it difficult to move to such area. For example, areas with hot climatic conditions like Medjugorje, do not attract labor like areas with cold climatic conditions like Plateau and Mambila Plateau. We have family and cultural ties. Some people are so close to their families and so attached to their culture, and that makes it difficult for them to move from their families and to detach from their cultures to other geographical areas. We have social and economic infrastructure. Areas with enough economic and social infrastructures are attractive to labor, so labor is mobile to such areas. Areas with things like electricity, pipe-borne water, good roads always attract labor, and labor move to such areas in order to enjoy those social and economic infrastructures. We have discrimination. Some areas discriminate against people, so labor finds it difficult or do not want to move to such area to avoid such discrimination. The next one is language barriers. Labor finds it difficult to move to areas where they speak language he or she does not understand, because he wants to communicate, and because of this barrier posed by language, labor finds it difficult to move to such area. Then we have search for higher knowledge. Some people, because of the quest for higher knowledge, will want to move to other geographical areas with institutions that will offer such knowledge, and that makes labor mobile. And that explains the reason why people move to Kaduna to study, because of the numerous institutions in such areas. We have search for fertile land. Many people, for farming sake, move from where they are or from one geographical area to another in order to farm. You will see people moving from places like Pangshin to places like Shendam in order to farm on this fertile land. Then we have government policy. Government can enact or come up with a policy that can make labor move from one geographical area to another. One of such policy is NYSC, which has made it mandatory for every graduate that fall within the age range to serve his or her fatherland. And that makes people to move from one geographical area to another in order to serve their fatherland. That is the reason why even in your school, we have core members, or what we call corpers, who serve there, and they don't come on their own accord. It is because the government has made a policy that makes them to serve the fatherland. The next thing we're going to discuss is occupational mobility of labor. Occupational mobility of labor. Occupational mobility of labor is the ease with which labor can move from one occupation to another. If it is easy for labor to move from one occupation to another, that is occupational mobility of labor. Let's look at the factors affecting occupational mobility of labor. The first is urge for higher remuneration. Yes, human beings always want higher income. So occupation that pays higher are always attractive. So labor always want to move to such occupations. Somebody who is a teacher will always want to move to becoming a banker or into the banking industry because the banking industry pays higher. You are seeking for better conditions of service. Yes, labor move to occupations that offer better conditions of service. Better conditions such as accommodation for workers, bonuses for workers, canteens for the workers. Labor move to such occupations in order to enjoy such conditions of service. They will have avoidance of inconveniences in certain occupations. Some occupations are accompanied by inconveniences, like the black collar jobs where more of the physical effort is needed. Labor would want to move to other occupations, like the blue collar jobs or white collar jobs, where there are less inconveniences, and to avoid occupations with more inconveniences. We have non-monetary advantages. Yes, you will see labor moving to occupations that have some advantages which are non-monetary. For example, the security attached to the occupation. Some jobs are not secured, others are. So labor will move to occupations that have job security. We have discrimination. Discriminations can also stop the movement of labor. Some jobs require, or some occupations require, that only males are employed. So this stopped the mobility of female labor into such occupation. So labor cannot easily move, especially female, into such occupation. Some again require that only females are needed. So males cannot move into such occupation. There are personal preferences. People have preferences. They prefer one occupation to the other. So the occupation they prefer is the one they move into. The ones they do not prefer, they don't go into such occupations. For example, if one's preference is teaching, the person will want to move to such occupation and leave others he has no preference for. We have trade union restrictions. Trade union can restrict the movement of labor. Trade union can create barriers that will stop labor from entering into such occupations by bringing rules and conditions to be met before labor can move into such occupation. When such rules and conditions exist, labor finds it difficult to move to such occupations. We have cost and length of training. Some occupations require that before you move into such occupation, you have to spend a lot, and you have to spend a lot of time acquiring training. This impedes the movement of labor into such occupation. It will be very difficult for labor to move into such occupation. But whenever the cost of training and the length of training is low, labor can easily move into such occupation. They will have ability or aptitude. Some occupation requires that one has a special ability or aptitude before he or she can move into such occupation. When this ability or aptitude is absent, then labor cannot move into such occupation. That is the end of the lesson. The next thing I have for you is assignment. I want you to do this assignment and to send it to me through my personal WhatsApp number. The first question is, distinguish between labor and labor force. The second one is, why may labor as a mobile factor unable to move? Remain blessed as you do this assignment.